Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers, and this is part 6 of our low to high poly food can. So let's go ahead and get started on this. We've got our low poly. We need to place that into a layer. So select the low poly and click on create a new layer and assign selected object. We'll double click on this and we're going to call this food can low poly. Okay, so food can low poly. Let's capitalize that one. There we go, and hit enter. There we go, and save. There we go, food can low poly. Let's turn that off and on, make sure that's working. And then we're going to go ahead and do Control D, and hit the W key and move that over to the side. All right, just like we did before, let's move this, let's move this over here like that. And so this will be placed over on this side, and then we have this will be our original. So this will be the edge loop. Now this will be in this, they're both in this because I duplicated them, okay? So what I need to do is kind of show you how the layers work. So whenever you have an object that is placed in a layer and you duplicate it, it's going to put that duplication in the same layer, okay? So if I go in here and I want this to be the original can, low poly, doesn't matter. And this will be the edge loops, the cage that I create. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a layer for that. So let's go ahead and take both of these and take them away. So remove selected objects, and let's go ahead and remove selected objects. Okay, and I'm going to click off and I'm going to turn this off and on. You can see that now nothing is selected. I'm turning this off, the visibility off and on, so nothing's in here. So I want this to be the low poly. So let's go ahead and right click over it and go to add selected objects. Okay, so when I do that, when I turn that, I can turn that off and on. So that's going to be the low poly, and this is going to be the edge loop cage, let's say. So I'm going to add this one to a layer, but I'm going to do it after I get all the edge loops completely done, completely finished, and then duplicate it over for the high poly. Okay, so I'm gonna wait to do a layer for this one. Okay, so just like I showed you before, we can isolate this so we can move around on it. So I'm gonna do Control 1. Okay, it isolates everything, and I'm just gonna work in perspective mode, and this will be fairly easy. So I'm gonna take you on adding edge loops to cylinders. Okay, so I'm going to get pretty close to the top here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edge loop mode. So I'm going to hold the shift key down, go into insert edge loop, and I'm going to start at the bottom here. I'm going to add an edge loop here, okay, to support this edge at the bottom, and then I'm going to add an edge loop on the lip, on the inside lip here, on clicking on this edge here and moving it down. So I'm holding my left mouse button down. Let's say if you make a mistake and you accidentally click there, that's fine, but you can go ahead and move that edge loop by scaling, because you can't move it by hitting the W key. You have to literally scale that now. Okay, you can scale that to where you want to place it. Okay, so it's a little harder. So try to place these edge loops a little bit. Take your time and do a better job at probably, when you're adding an edge loop. I'm going to hit the Q key, get back into selection mode, and get back into insert edge loop tool. Click anywhere in on your object, and now you can just be mindful where you're clicking on that edge. So I'm clicking, and you hold the left mouse button down as you're doing it. That will allow you to move it around. Okay, get it placed exactly where you want it. And then I'm going to place one edge loop here. We're keeping them evenly spaced, as you can see. Trying to anyway. I'm going to zoom in here and add an edge loop here. Okay. And an edge loop here on the outside, and then the inside. Okay, and then an outside edge loop here, and then the inside edge loop here. Okay, that's it. That's all we're gonna do. Okay, and I'm gonna hit the Q key and then right click over and go to selection mode. So we've got basically that edge there completely finished. Okay, and for practice, I know I can probably cut the can in half, but we all need the practice. So we're going to add the edge loops down here as well and do the best we can. Just click on anywhere in the scene and then click on the edge loop and get it close to what you had at the top. Doesn't have to be perfect again. This is okay. So I'm just adding edge loops here, here, and here. And as you get better, you get faster too. And I'm going to rotate around, zoom out a little bit, rotate around, and get back in here to this part. So you got that outside part now. We're going to get to the inside part. So I'm going to click on this edge and this edge and this edge and this edge. You can pause the video if I'm going too fast, okay, to catch up. All right, hit the Q key, right click over the object, and now we're going to add, let's rotate it around because we're upside down now. And you can see that when I'm looking at the axes display right here. Okay, so I'm going to kind of get us faced to the Z. The Z is facing down, rotate around, and we're at the top, so the Y is facing up. All right, so now we kind of know, otherwise you're going to get disoriented on this. All right, so we need to add those. Let's click on references again. Oh, I needed to go Control 1. So we got the edge loops done on the top of the can, but we have these bumps on top of the can, which are kind of cool. So that gives us a bit of a challenge to figure out how we're going to add those. Okay, so I'll give you a little heads up on that. So we've got, I purposely put those on top here so we could figure out how to add all that detail. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to go in perspective mode. Okay, zoom in perspective mode, and we want to select all the faces on the top and the bottom of the can. So you guessed it, we're going to use the paint selection tool and just select all of the faces on top. Okay, oh, faces. So select all the faces on top, not selecting anything else. And then I'm going to turn off the references just for now. And select and hold the shift key down, select all the faces on the bottom. Okay, like that. I'm going to hit the Q key to get out of that tool. And hit the 4 key just to make sure we're not selecting any other face. Okay, at all. And then we're going to go to the top view, and we're going to do Control E. Now I'm going to click on the references again so we can see references. So in here, okay, we're going to use the scale. So I'm going to scale that in to match the outside of that first rib. Okay? And then I'm going to do the same thing, position myself, and then scale the green square in like so. Okay? So the red and then the green. When I'm done, I'm going to look at the top, hit the 5 key so I can see what I've done, and rotate around. Don't click on anything. And I'm going to turn the reference off real quick. You're going to have to turn it off and on, and look at the bottom. Okay, that looks good. That's what you should see. If you don't see that, you've made a mistake. Just Control Z back, move the video back, and try it again. Okay? And if you do get stuck, send me some screenshots of what's happening, what's wrong, and hopefully you get to me before we have our class on Wednesday. Okay? So that way you can ask questions like, how do I fix this, right? If you've gotten this work done, then it's going to be a lot easier for me to help you. So I'm going to turn that back on the references. I haven't touched anything. I'm just rotating around and moving things around, turning things off and on. I'm going to go to the top view, and I'm going to do another Control E. Okay, and that gives me another. I duplicated a face on top of another face, so I've got to scale it down. We're going to do the same thing. Click on the red cube and scale it in to the middle of this bump. So if you see that middle of the bump right here, okay. Now if I can continue going down, okay, to the rib. So I'm going to click on that rib right there that you see. We're going to do the ribs here. So I'm going to click on that rib, okay, something like that. And then I'm going to click on the green box, the green cube, click on it and just move that up like that. So you're moving your mouse up. And you're going to follow kind of that rib that you see on the inside. Okay? I don't need to look at the bottom. Okay? I can continue on because I'm just having faith and a little faith that the bottom's doing the same thing. So I'm going to do Control E again. Okay? And click on the cube, the red cube, and just kind of scale that in. Okay? Moving your mouse side to side to get that to move. And then I'm going to do the green cube and move that in. Okay, so you're following that. Okay, great. And then we're going to do Control E again. And then I'm going to scale that in. Okay, and then I'm going to scale that up. Like that. That looks good. And I'm going to do one more, Control E, okay, and scale that in. And this is arbitrary because we don't have really anything to look at, and just scale that in and just get it as close as you can to a circle, okay? And that's okay. And then click off, okay? Click Q. And then we've got all of those divisions we need on the can to recreate those ribs. Okay? All right. So to recreate those ribs, okay, so what we have to do is we have to go from the base of the can up to make a ridge, down to the base of the can, up to make the ridge, and then down to the base of the can. And then we have a ridge on the center. Okay? So that's what we need to really look at. Okay? So if we look at the top of our can, okay, we've got both the bottom and the top done. So I've got the bottom and the top completed. So now I need to go in here and add edge loops on the interior part of this object, okay? And that's easy to do. So we've got an area where it's flat, and then I'm going to have an area that is moved up, but I don't have an edge loop here. Okay, I need to have an edge loop centered along here. So I need to add some more edge loops, and that's fine. So I'm going to go to face mode and hold down the shift key and right mouse button and click on insert edge loop tool. And I'm going to insert an edge loop right in the center here. And then I'm going to click on it right in the center here. Okay. So now I'm going to select these edge loops. I'm going to go down to the bottom of the can and do the same thing. I'm going to add an edge loop in the center here and add an edge loop in the center here. Okay, so now we just need to rotate around to the top, click off anywhere, hit the Q key, and go into object mode. Okay, and we're going to double click. We're just going to kind of click on this select by object type up here. Okay, and what we need to do now is that we have a flat space. So let's kind of move this down. So I'm going to turn on the reference here and move, if I can move that perspective reference down. I'm going to move it down so I can see it while I'm modeling. There we go. The top of the can, I'm going to move that in a position where I can see it. So I've got a little space right here before it bumps up. So got a space here. So then it bumps up right here in the middle. So I'm going to go to edge mode and double click on that. And it goes up and then down and then up. So I'm going to hold the shift key down and double click on that. So what I can do is I can move these up to get that ridge that I'm looking for. Okay. Now I'm going to hit the 3 key just to see how far it will go up on the ridge of the can. Okay, how far it will go up. And is that what I want? Does the ridge of the can, do the ridges go up as high as the edge? No, they don't. So I'm going to go to the side view and take a look at that. Probably I would say about halfway. So I'm going to hit the 4 key and kind of go back, Control Z back, until both of those edge loops are still selected. And I'm going to go to the side view or the front view, doesn't matter, and just kind of check out how tall my edge loops are compared to the can, the top of the can. And I think I had it up pretty good. It's not touching us, it's not going higher, and it's just a little bit below the rim. Okay, that'll give us a nice, gives us nice bumps that we can see. Okay. All right, so something like that, and let's take a look at how tall those are, and those look pretty good. Do the same thing for the bottom. Okay, so let's turn off, let's go back into referencing this, and let's turn that off so we can see what we're doing. So we need to go past 1 and double click on this one, hold the shift key and go past 1 and double click this one, and then move that downward, hit the W key. We'll go to the side view and we kind of see, move it down, zoom out, move it down, and see where we need to place that. So we're going to place it right about there. That looks pretty good. So we got the ridges on the bottom of the can and then ridges on the top of the can. Okay, so how does this look so far? Let's go to selection mode, hit the Q key and hit the 3 key and click off of it, and that's what we have so far. Okay, so we got the ridges of the can. That looks pretty good. But we need to, because if we look at this object here, they're a little bit more defined on the inside. So we need to kind of set that up to make that look a little bit better. Okay, so a couple things we're going to do. Go back to 1. We're going to select the faces on the inside, okay, and the outside, so the inside of this. So I'm going to go, you guessed it, to this right here. I'm just going to select the top, and I'm going to make the brush a little bit smaller. Hold the B key down, make it a little bit smaller, and then I'm going to hold the shift key down and select these guys right here. Be careful not to select anything else but those. Okay. And we are going to move this up. So I'm going to hit the Q key, hit the W key, and I need to make sure nothing else is selected. If you do, this could really mess things up. So make sure you hit the 4 key in wireframe to kind of see if you have anything selected. And I'm going to move that up just a smidgen. So hit the 5 key again and just move that up just a smidgen, just to kind of give that a little bit of a ridge there. Okay. And that's what we're going to see on the inner part right here, is that little ridge. Okay. And we're going to do that to the bottom as well. So go back into your paint selection tool and select all of the pieces on the bottom, and then hold the shift key down and select these guys right here just outside of that. Okay, like that. And we're just about done, and we're gonna hit the W key, hit the Q key, hit the W key. Just make sure you get out of that tool, the selection tool. And the yellow arrow is what we need to select and move it down just a smidgen. Okay, just not a lot, just a little bit, and click off. All right, so that kind of gives us those edges here. Okay, so the thing is that we need tighter edges right here. Okay, and the outside of this edge loop here on the outside of this can. So right here we need an edge loop here. Okay, we don't need an edge loop here. We don't need it really pointed. We need it more rounded. So an edge loop here, here, and maybe here, here and here, here and here, and then maybe here. Okay, so we'll take you through that process here. So I'm going to hit the Q key, hold the Shift key down, right mouse button into Insert Edge Loop, click anywhere on the can, and then select this edge right here and click on it. Get about as close as you are right here. You can see that how close that is. We'll keep that separated about that like that. We'll do the same thing over here. Okay, same thing over here. Okay, keep the same distance that we have been using for edge loops. Keep it consistent throughout the whole entire model. And this one here, we're going to bring it a little bit closer to the edge. Okay, we don't want this to be really sharp, so let's bring it right about here and see how that looks. Okay, because we want a kind of a nice soft edge through that. Okay, and so let's check it out and see how that looks. Hit the Q key, click off, go into a selection mode and hit the 3 key and see how that looks. And that looks really good. And we might want to define that because this looks like it's more defined on the top right here. Okay, you can see that shadow. So how do we get that defined edge? Okay, so let's do this then. Let's go to selection mode, hit the 1 key, and what we want to do, okay, since we put one over here, we probably need to put an edge loop right here to support that edge, to keep that really sharp. So let's add then another edge loop here and see if that does it. So insert edge loop, and we're going to click anywhere on this object, and then you can see that we've got the 3 here, and then we got the 1 right here, the 2 here. Let's put one right about there, and that will harden that edge right here, but then soften it as it goes in. Let's see if that works. Hit the Q key, right click over this object, and hit the 3 key, and click off. And I think that did it. So we got a nice hard edge there. Now we could probably even make that a little bit harder because it looks like it's pretty defined right here. So let's take one step further. Okay, so I'm going to go in here on hit the 1 key. Now how do we move this edge? Because it's on an angle. If it was flat, then it would be fine, but we have an edge that's on an angle. So I'll show you how to do that. So hold the Shift key down, right mouse button, and we're going to go to Slide Edge Tool. Slide Edge Tool. Okay, we can slide that edge. So I'm going to, it says the middle mouse button, click over it, and then slide it around. So it looks like it snaps to where I had it before, and then I'm going to push it a little bit farther up. I'm just moving that mouse button over just a little bit to get a little bit closer. There we go. That's what we want. If you can't get that to work, then what you do is you click on the edge and do Control Delete, and then redo the edge again. That's what you can do if you can't get the Slide Edge tool to work for you. Okay, hit the 1 key and click Select, and then zoom out a little bit, and then hit the 3 key to kind of see what that edge looks like. And that is really defined now. Looks a lot better. Okay. And so we need to do the exact same thing to the bottom. Okay, select, okay, and then we're going to go to 1 key. Okay. All right, and do the same exact thing in here, which is probably easier now that you know what you're doing. Okay, I need to find a little spot here to rotate and get that right angle here. It might take some getting used to here. All right, so we're kind of upside down, and we're going to click on Object Mode and get into Insert Edge Loop, and click anywhere, and then click on this edge right here, and then start adding edges, appropriate edges. Okay, there we go. Excellent. Edge loop here, edge loop here, edge loop pretty tight here, and then a farther edge loop over here, and that's it. So we got it all done. A couple edge loops and you're good to go. Hit the Q key, right click over and go to selection mode, hit the 3 key, and that looks really good. Nice job. Okay. All right, that's great. So now we've got, just make sure they're all, you're not going to ever see the bottom unless you have the can tipped over or something. Okay. The only thing that I am kind of seeing that there is a bit of a harder edge on top than what we have. Ours is very rounded. So maybe we want to add a couple edge loops up there. While you're modeling, you just look in your reference all the time. You're going, well, maybe I should add a little bit of an edge loop on top. So let's go ahead and click on 1 key. And let's add, and what I mean by is, let's add a couple edge loops like on either side of this to make that pop a little bit more on top. So go into object mode and go into insert edge loop. Let me show you what I mean. So if I'm going to click on this guy, I'm not going to get as close because that would make it really tight. But I'm going to pull it down a little bit like this and like this, okay, and like this. Okay, I'm going to do the bottom as well since I'm already here. And so we're right here and right here, here, and here. There we go. Okay. And then we'll hit the Q key, click off, go into object mode, and then hit the 3 key again. And you can see that ridge looks a lot nicer. It's not perfectly pointed, but it gives us a ridge that looks more like the food can. Okay? Looks a lot more like the food can does. I'm happy with that. That looks way better. Okay, look at the bottom. Very nice. Okay, if you got this far, excellent job. So we're going to hit the 1 key again. All right. So this is our edge loops. This is our edge loop cage. Okay. So the next step would be to create a high poly. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. But before I do that, I've got a lot of edge loops and all that stuff. So I'm going to click on it and click on delete history. Now I'm not going to click anything in the translation. I'm not going to freeze this until I'm ready to export it out. Okay, so I got these 2 objects. I'm going to go into object mode up here. So now I can select these guys. And now I'm going to duplicate. So I'm going to go Control D and move this over. Okay. So that being moved over. Okay, the spacing is don't need to be just, no specific spacing on it. Now we're going to go into, and then we're going to add a smooth to this. We're going to smooth this out. So I'm going to smooth it. So mesh and smooth. Okay, we're going to go to 2 and click smooth. Wow, there we go. So we're now at 43,840 faces. Now that's something you cannot really bring into a game engine. That's overkill. I'm not saying that Unreal couldn't handle it. It's just way overkill. And if you had 50,000 of these, this would cause problems with your computer. Okay, so we'd rather have 440 than 43,000. 440 sounds way better than 43,000. So if you look at the edge loops, we're already at 2,760. That's way more than the 440. Okay? All right, so you can see that even if we just use the edge loop one, which we could, it just wouldn't look near as nice as the high poly. Okay? So we're going to bake all that information onto this can. So the 43,840 onto the low poly can to get the ridges on top and everything. So congratulations, it's all finished now. And then the next part, I'll show you how to get everything into its own layer and then get everything together to export out so you can have something for well, we're not going to export it out yet. We have to UV map the low poly. So we'll take you through the next steps on how to get everything put together, and I'll see you in the next video.